But for 5 seasons I wrote a blog called Two Gold Cushion, got fed up with it at the end of last season. But we ran a feature for a while and people sent in their stories of their favourite game, and that led to this modest tome that I self-published. And anyway, I asked people to write about their favourite game. One of the best stories came from Ian. He didn't quite follow the brief because he wrote about his scariest game. But anyway, he's going to read you his story now.
Thanks, Pete. It was April 1991, and we were having a good season in East London's Sunday League. My Isle of Dogs team, the Blacksmith Arms, were near the top of the table. A run in the League Cup had taken us to the semi-finals. I was an outsider, but I'd been accepted into this very close-knit team. We'd been doing well the season before, until we lost 3 of our midfielders for possession, the other kind. This also meant I'd lost my opportunity to buy a BMW. Name your colour, 5k, no questions asked. It also didn't help that we had lost Sweaty Tam, the scaffolder, who'd broken his foot when he dropped a pole on it. Nearly all the team had nicknames. My favourite was Dagenham Owl, not the sharpest tool in the box, but a capable fullback. One day I asked him how long he had lived in Dagenham. He insisted that he came from Millwall and had never lived in Dagenham. His tone of voice didn't invite a follow-up. Later I asked another teammate, Soggy, just a bit wet behind the ears, why he was called Dagenham Owl. He looked to me as though I was stupid and said, Dagenham, 2 stops past Barking. Think about it. I was working for a homelessness charity at the time. An occupation that didn't really compute with the boys, so they just called me Sweaty the social worker. All the players were from the Isle of Dogs. Their families had lived there for generations and were very proud of their roots. 2 of them had never been to the West End and had no intention of ever going. The Isle of Dogs was changing in those days. This was the year of the yuppies. A new housing development started to spring up everywhere. Indeed, the first block of flats, the Cascades, opened right opposite the Blacksmiths. Fleet Street and its presses also moved to the Isle of Dogs at that time. The telegraph offices were nearby, and a handful of hacks took to drinking in the Blacksmiths, looking, no doubt, for that true working class experience. Kev, our kit man, sensed an opportunity, but I'm not sure how many new readers the paper gained as we ran out in our Sunday Telegraph kit in front of 2 men and a dog. We played all our matches on Hackney Marshes, the spiritual home of Sunday football. At its height, there were some 120 pitches and over 2,500 players every Sunday morning. It was quite a sight watching so many players running off hangovers and settling old scores from the night before. This Sunday lunchtime saw us back at the pub, waiting to find out who we had in the semis. We had been drawn against our fiercest rivals, the Ferry Tavern. The semi-final was no straightforward local derby. Many family feuds were at stake. I was sitting next to the manager and captain. One says, we can't afford to lose this one. Better get a couple of shooters in. I was surprised we would be able to get a couple of ringers at this late stage. As someone from the East End of Glasgow, even I found the atmosphere at Hackney Marshes that sunny morning rather intimidating. So imagine how I felt when I reached into the kit bag to get my stuff, only to find 2 sawn-off shotguns. We won 2-0, and never in my life have I been so glad to get back to a pub for a pint. The final, our first, was at East London Stadium, and I soon found out what true East End loyalty was about. Despite being the second highest scorer that season, I was dropped to the bench. The manager explained he had to play his brother, as his family would never forgive him if he didn't start. But he did bring me on for the second half, and we won. So, happy ending. The post-match street party was like a scene from EastEnders. There was lots of bunting, all the families, and enough booze to float a battleship. Even the Telegraph journals joined the celebration. The end of season presentation night was equally raucous. As always, it was held in a hotel in Chingford, the only place that any of the team would ever consider moving to if they won the lottery. Thank you. following a very good response to the first book, we developed an idea for a follow-up, a collection of stories of fans' unplanned encounters with the good and the great of the football world, called Close Encounters of the Football Kind, which was published last year. Here's Pete's story.
Close him down, Pete, shouted our centre-back and captain. Perhaps a little reluctantly, I shuffled into position on the edge of the box, ready to take one for the team. However, not for the first time, I was a little slow, and the opposition's midfielder's shot wasn't blocked. Fortunately for us, his fizzing, curling effort crashed into the angle of post and bar and rebounded to relative safety, where our right-back was able to clear. This was Sunday morning football in the spring of 1987, but the opposition midfielder was not just any Sunday footballer. He was Martin Peters, an England World Cup winner from 1966. How come? Well, I was fixtures secretary for my local Sunday side, with the unenviable job, in the pre-internet and mobile phone era, of organising matches and picking the team. We had a great home ground with good facilities, didn't actually play many away games. But I'd been keen to get the boys some quality away fixtures, rather than games against the likes of 281 FC, a side named after a bus route, and the frankly scary Hanworth Casuals. So that season we played Shell at their palatial Lensbury ground, and now Harrods on the south bank of the Thames. I don't recall any expectation that we might play against anybody famous, so it was something of a surprise to find the Martin Peters line up in the Harrods midfield. What do I remember? Well, firstly, Martin, then aged 44, wasn't as outstanding as you might expect. He didn't really look a world beater. When playing for club and country, he was known as an intelligent player, a great passer, and for his ability to arrive late in the box and score vital goals. Oddly, what was noticeable was just how good he was in the air. At our level, most of us were happy to nod the ball in vaguely the right direction whenever circumstances dictated. Martin, on the other hand, would invariably head the ball precisely to a teammate's feet. The other memory which I have, which I can see in my mind's eye as if it were yesterday, concerned a corner. I was defending in my usual near post position, and as the corner floated to the penalty spot, I half turned, having forgotten about his involvement, to see Martin Peters ghosting into space and out jumping a colleague and heading towards goal. I thought, crikey, that's Martin Peters. How odd. He didn't score then or at any time in the match, but we did lose 3-1. What was really quite funny was that the way at the final whistle, my teammates and I formed an orderly queue to shake the hand of a World Cup winner and exchange a few post-match platitudes. Martin was polite and self-effacing as his 10 colleagues sloped off to the changing rooms pretty much unnoticed. I'm sorry, but there is a slightly disappointing personal footnote to this story. I decided to retire from football before Christmas of the next season. As a consequence, I missed the second fixture against Harrods, which featured not only Martin Peters, but also Bobby Moore. Nevertheless, I had met and successfully tackled a World Cup winner. Just to let some of you younger people know, Martin Peters played in all but one of England's 96 World Cup games, scored the second goal in the final against, not Germany, West Germany, and Peters played 67 times for England, scoring 20 times. He retired from pro football in 81, sadly died in 2019.
Very good.
And our absolutely fabulous books are on sale.
Yeah.